I always treat metadata as plumbing, essentially. No one wants to talk about plumbing, but when something goes wrong, you really need a plumber really, really quickly.
In today's AI Data Chat, we are here with Elena Simperl, Professor of Computer Science at King's College London and Director of Research at the Open Data Institute. Welcome, Elena. What is our AI data topic for today, and what drink are you pairing it with?
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here among like-minded friends and collaborators. The topic of the day is how to document and describe machine learning data in a way that facilitates reuse across tools and audience groups. The drink of choice is something that is very popular in Germany, where I spent most of my youth, which is a mixture of sparkling water and apple juice, which is very refreshing in summer.
Sounds lovely. So to start today's chat, we'll invite you to give your hot take on the topic you've chosen.
So you were talking about data being the dirty little secret in AI. I couldn't agree more. I would say that data work is some of the most undervalued, or like my friend Laura Arroyo is saying, the most under-glamorized part of AI. This is slowly changing, but it is not changing quickly enough. And this is a problem because we are running out of data. We have exhausted as a community most data sources, public data sources that have been made available over the last decades. We have used them sometimes in a careless way without considering whether size or volume of data is the only important attribute to continue to make progress in terms of model performance. And we got to a stage now where we will run out of data and we have to think about alternatives. At this time, finding, understanding, and using machine learning datasets is a huge pain for everyone, including for those trained in computer science and AI. And one reason for this is the fact that we don't have the infrastructure to help those engineers, to help those machine learning researchers, to help those data labelers and other people involved in the supply chain to work with data comfortably, to look for a data set, to find it, to understand quite easily how it was created and what it was good for, what it was intended for, how to repurpose it, and how, again, to, if they want, share it with other people. We are at a time today in AI data work like we were maybe a few decades ago when we weren't able to process text documents with different text processors. If you imagine, if you're that old and still remember the pain of those times, this is the sort of time we are at the moment for data. Data is not portable. Not only that everything is extremely tedious and ad hoc, but every tech stack comes with its own format, which of course adds even more overhead to something that, as I was saying, is already quite undervalued and underexplored.
Thank you for this great topic and painting a picture of the current state in the data ecosystem. What you describe reminds me of a paper from Google Research, I believe, around how everyone wants to do the model work, but no one wants to do the data work. So please tell us more about how your work is addressing some of these challenges.
So the paper that you mentioned is one of the most influential in this space. They were talking about that issue with lack of incentives for those doing this type of essential work. So I will tell you a little bit more about the project I'm involved with at the Open Data Institute. So it's a technology called Croissant. Croissant is an open community-built standardized metadata vocabulary for machine learning datasets. Now let's unpack that. So it is open. That means it is available open source. If you go to mlcommons/croissant, you will find a link to a Git repository, and you're able to use both that technology and all the tools that we have developed straight away. You can build on top of it. It's all in the open. It is built in a working group that is hosted by ML Commons. ML Commons is a members-based association with more than 125 organizations and even more people from various parts of the AI ecosystem volunteering to different working groups. And Croissant is one of these working groups. Now, I said standardized metadata vocabulary. So a vocabulary describes things. What does Croissant describe? It describes data that is used for machine learning, whether that's a pre-training data set, fine-tuning data set, a reference data set, whether it's particular attributes within a data set like labels, whether it's a syntactic data set or whether it's an attribute like the license or the terms of use of that data set. All that information is captured as metadata in a machine-readable way. You could think, well, we have data cards. Why do we need metadata? Why do we need it to be machine-readable? Well, tooling does not read data cards. Data cards are very, very useful, but they are meant for human consumption. When you have a piece of software that does something with data, read it, process it, write it, analyze it, it needs metadata. It needs machine-readable version of a data card to be able to understand what it's doing. If you want interoperability between different tools, then all tools need ideally to be using the same thing, the same machine-readable card. And that's what Croissant is doing.
So when it comes to the vocabulary you're building for machine readability and interoperability of data sets, you mentioned things like licenses, whether it's synthetic data, any other interesting attributes that you've built around this vocabulary?
Yes. So we've launched version 1 of the vocabulary in March last year. And we, at the time, we have prioritized 3 classes of use cases. Those were determined by the community. So there's more than 50 organizations that are already represented in the Croissant working group. So the first use case we had was around reducing frictions for using data sets across machine learning tools and platforms. So we worked together with TensorFlow, with OpenML, with other tool providers to agree on a set of attributes to describe the structure of the files within a machine learning data set in a way that allows them, when they load that data, to unambiguously, from a computational rather than a human point of view, understand what's in the data and be able to process that data effectively. The second use case is around making it easier for people to publish, discover, and reuse machine learning data sets. To meet this use case, we built on top of an existing vocabulary, which is part of something called schema.org. Schema.org is a class of vocabularies that is used on the web to add machine-readable metadata to web pages. So, for instance, if you have a company web page, you will add a few attributes as metadata embedded in your HTML page that will say things about your company name, the domain in which you're operating, maybe your business hours, your location. You will express that both in HTML in text and with pictures for people to read, also with metadata, so that search engines that crawl the web understand exactly what you are about and are able to render that information effectively in the search engine. Now, building on top of this, we thought, what is the equivalent of this markup for a page that talks about a data set? We then thought, well, what are the specific attributes of machine learning data sets rather than regular data sets? So that left us with essentially 4 types of attributes. You can imagine general information about the name, the domain, maybe the machine learning it was originally created for, maybe something about the license that the publisher has attached to the data. Then we have a number of attributes about resources and structure. So by resources, we mean the source data and how it is organized in files and sets of files. And by structure, we basically mean a better way to organize those resources so that we achieve that portability of tools. And then we have some attributes that refer specifically to call machine learning semantics. So machine learning specific data interpretation for interoperability, for instance, custom types like bounding boxes, train and test splits. So things that really have to do with how that data will likely be ingested, be processed by machine learning tools. All of that is available openly. So on Git, you'll have a JSON description of this vocabulary.
It's great to hear how deeply your team has thought about from the start how this data can be sourced and also structured in a machine learning specific context. In some ways, it reminds me of how we at Encore think about something we call an ontology, or the labeling specification for the kinds of objects and the related attributes that might be associated with all the kind of information you want to extract from a file, whatever modality it is. Sometimes when we talk about data, let alone the data about data, such as the metadata, there is a bit of a glazing over in the eyes of whoever we are talking about it with. You've clearly brought together a wonderful team of 50 organizations to work on this problem. You have collaborated with different platforms like Kaggle and Hugging Face to make Croissant integrate into these platforms. How have you approached having this conversation about the metadata around data sets? How have you addressed this incentives challenge that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I can't claim I have an answer that will work in any situation. I will tell you just from my own experience what some of the factors have been that worked in our favor. I always treat metadata as plumbing, essentially. No one wants to talk about plumbing, but when something goes wrong, you really need a plumber really, really quickly. It's true that you can't, it's difficult to make people excited about it. At the same time, I think our timing was right. We are at a point in time when, at least on paper, we have many data sets. Hugging Face must have several hundreds of thousands. The same with Kaggle. At the same time, every time we want to apply amazing technology into a new domain, we need to build a data set, not from scratch, but pretty much by putting together existing data sources, some of them AI ready, published on one of these platforms that I have just mentioned, others using different formats and requiring a lot of processing. So I suppose if we would have this conversation 5 years ago, it would have been a very, very different pitch. But right now, everyone slowly realizes that that ability to do the data piece well is important. At the same time, I think what really helped us was working together with relevant stakeholders. So it was a collaborative approach that involved many different views that brought together different pockets of expertise, whether that's machine learning engineering, whether that's data engineering and semantic technologies, whether that's data management and stewardship. So we tried as much as possible to build on top of these existing efforts rather than with something completely new. And as a result, we have around 700,000 data sets today that are using Croissant. We are thinking constantly about how to make it easier for any type of data publishers to make their data available in a Croissant compatible format.
All really great points for how to think about data problems and how to bring together the right stakeholders to work together on data problems today. And I love that analogy you gave in the beginning too. Given the scale of data sets in machine learning now, we need to make sure that we address things early on, because the likelihood of a data plumbing catastrophe is much larger than ever. So could you share a little bit more about what the experience is like for using Croissant today? How do different organizations get started? And what does that look like for both the data creators and the data users?
Yes, thank you for that. And I have to say, I said earlier that we've launched in March last year, so this is still early days, and we are still figuring out what type of support users would need, because we have identified a number of different types of users. So some of our early adopters are machine learning tools. We would love to work with more tool providers, technology providers, to cover the whole data and AI lifecycle. So I mentioned OpenML, I've mentioned TensorFlow. So these are very important tools for the community, but we all know that there's a much wider range of more specialized tools, for instance, that do essential data work like augmentation and labeling, that we'd love to hear from, to see how we can address their needs. So I have a web background. So the scenario I first think about is, how do I allow every machine learning researcher, every machine learning data publisher to share their data with everyone else in the community in the same way as they publish a website. So we're working now towards specifying how such a publishing model or a server model could look like. There's some very interesting technology development. For instance, the model context protocol that aim to standardize data access by machine learning models and agents, which are very interesting to us as well, because we see from other parts of the community that they see the same need, right? So
it's wonderful that through ML Commons, Croissant has really been built with so much of the machine learning community. I have to ask, the name Croissant, did that also come through a community process? Is it the favorite pastry of the Croissant team?
So that was before my time. And we do this question, we do get this question a lot. I think it was a bit of a creative license of some of the ML Commons team who were looking for something a bit more different. A bit different. They were also at the same time thinking about what are the essential things that engineers need to go about their work in a happy and content way. It's either coffee or pastries. So we picked the pastry, which means now that we have a whole theme around bakeries and the like, to build that tooling environment that we know is going to be important to continue to drive adoption.
I've always wondered if the layers associated with the croissant and the layers of metadata related.
Absolutely, and lots of butter. But we are thinking about vegan options as well. So in fact, one of the use cases I haven't really mentioned was how to be more mindful of the implications of AI and how to support and operationalize responsibility in AI. And so this is an area which obviously draws from all the amazing work that the responsible AI community has done. And there's many aspects of responsible AI that we could deal with, from documenting known limitations of data sets, which is something that data cards also cover, but also use cases where having machine readable information about the data set could enable us to do things differently. For instance, something like conditional data access. So Croissant it's also for data sets that will never be openly available but contain sensitive information. So as such, that mechanism to be able to access some information about the data in a programmatic way, perhaps do an access negotiation, perhaps discover which parts of the data are available under which conditions, and how you could mix and match different data sets with different terms of use. Having machine readable information about them can help operationalize some of these steps. And then the one scenario which is quite close to my heart, given the previous research I was doing in crowdsourcing and in citizen science, is our ability to be able to capture more of that process, not just in terms of activities, but also perhaps in terms of the diversity of labelers tends to be quite important for certain types of tasks.
It's great to hear that the Croissant team is thinking beyond the technical metadata, but also around these responsible AI attributes. Well, I think this is a wonderful place to close. So I'll move us forward to our final rapid fire round of 5 questions. What scale of data are you working with these days?
We'd like to support all data sets. I think we need more testing for large data sets, just in terms of the tooling that we have. So if anyone wants to give our Python library and editor and other tools a try and give us feedback, we'd love to hear them.
Any favorite data sets you've come across recently?
Well, I think some of the data sets that are used in safety testing are quite interesting. I also like a project called the Adversarial Nibbler, where the community is coming together to collect prompts that can be quite challenging on the second side, not on the first side, for text to vision models.
What do you think 2025 is the year of for AI data?
For AI data, I would say that 2025 is going to be the year of transparency.
I love it.
We're going to see more, we're going to see improvements in transparency practices driven by a range of factors for which we don't have time to look into. But I'm very optimistic about it.
What do you think is an AI data challenge that should be receiving more attention?
I think the issue of representation of data and the degree to which we are able to serve the needs of different communities and demographics all over the world and access to high quality data to make that happen.
And final question, how was the pairing of your drink, that lovely apple spritz, with today's data topic?
I think it worked quite well because, as I was saying earlier, so I sit between these different communities. So mixing these different ingredients, meant that on the one hand, I was taken back to the time when I was a student and I was enjoying summer in Bavaria. On the other hand, I was here with you talking about what I think is a very timely topic. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us, Elena. Where can we find more of your work?
If you want to hear more about Croissant, go to mlcommons/Croissant, and there's instructions there about how to join the group. As I said, it is open and free for everyone to meet. We meet once a week, and we're a friendly bunch of people. There's lots of newcomers every week who are joining us, so I hope to see some of you there.
That wraps up this AI data chat. You can find links to our speaker's work in the episode description. If you'd like to share your thoughts or suggest a speaker, email us at aidatachats@encord.com.